and residents in the city. They had been shutting off water for years, but nowhere on this scale.
Welcome, beloved community. We are back again with yet another installment of the People's Water Board Coalition Water Wednesday webcast. And today we are talking about Northern Michigan and about water affordability issues that we all face. Water affordability is across the state, off the charts. People cannot afford their water. Doesn't matter where they live. It's it's a real problem throughout Michigan. And Nicole's been doing a huge amount of research about the smaller towns in Michigan and how they're kind of managing their water affordability issues. And it's a short show, so we're going to jump right in. Nicole, thank you for doing this research and for always going on this journey with me.
Of course, it's important. First of all, let me say to our viewers that we think of issues of water affordability in terms of statewide. It's not just a Detroit issue, Wayne County issue, a southeastern Michigan issue. It's across the state. And despite the fact of there being a lot of low-income people in Detroit, in the Metro Detroit area, it's hitting these smaller communities, some of which are rural, just as hard, if not harder, because they're smaller communities. And so today I want to just talk about two of our smaller communities, which is Sheboygan, Michigan, and Charlevoix, Michigan, both of which you probably haven't heard mentioned very much when it comes to water issues or water affordability. I know when we think of cities and towns outside of the Metro Detroit area, we think of the contamination issues, the PFAS, the lead, but there is an affordability issue.
And we've covered all those on Water Wednesday too.
Yes,
we do think about those
Please
things.
go back and review our shows. But there is a definite affordability issue in some of these smaller northern Michigan areas. So in Sheboygan, we can start with that. It's becoming a growing concern. It may not have seemed like it was concern in the beginning, but it's becoming a growing concern for many households in Sheboygan because people are beginning to realize that regardless of their location, whether they're urban or they're suburban household or even a rural household, University of Michigan did a study and found that just with the inflation adjusted average cost of water across the state has increased about 188% since 1980, which is what,
That's
a
a
little
lot.
over 40 years. And this when you translate it down to more sizable understandings for us, that means roughly 7 to 11% of households statewide struggle with their water bills or trying to maintain water services. And with Sheboygan,
And that's even including, right, like people who have,
wells,
wells and things like that. If your well breaks down, like that's a water affordability issue,
like
right? If you don't have
even if
that
your well,
$9,000,
if there's a problem with your
$10,000 to
well,
fix
if
it.
your well runs dry, if you have some infrastructure issues with any of the pipes coming from the well or anything like that, that's all falling under water affordability because the cost oftentimes falls on the resident versus the municipality or the department that's handling water infrastructure and supply and distribution. As we saw with Alpena a couple weeks ago, them being owned by Veolia really meant that like they had a monopoly. But if you noticed when I discussed Alpena, Veolia does nothing from the curb up to the house.
Yeah, so you're seeing it all over, water affordability issues where people just can't afford to keep their infrastructure up to date and things like that. And of course, Alpena was dealing with privatization, right?
If customers are paying bills and can't afford to keep their infrastructure up, this money that they're paying into the system that's supposed to assist with repairing infrastructure and updating infrastructure, what is being done with this money? Because in Sheboygan specifically, they have an agency called the Northeast Michigan Community Services Agency, or NIMSCA, which I think is probably similar to what we call community action agencies in southeastern Michigan. And they offer assistance to low-income households in the Sheboygan area and other northern Michigan counties to help pay water and sewer bills. But even according to them, residents in their core counties, which includes Sheboygan, who are responsible for paying water bill and meet eligibility requirements may be eligible for. And the thing is that you're not hearing, okay, if you fall into this range, you definitely qualify. It's maybe,
Yeah.
possibly qualify. So that means there's more hoops for a lot of these residents to have to jump through, and some of them may not know of it. Some of them may not qualify, which still leaves you holding the bag for trying to afford your water and your water infrastructure. And the thing is that, well, across the state, we have to go by the Michigan State Legislature laws, understandably. But specifically to northern Michigan, I think because a lot of these towns are rural and on wells, they have specific legislation that applies to them, such as Senate Bill 550, which aims to create a statewide low-income water affordability plan with specific eligibility criteria, which includes debt forgiveness and shutoff protections. We don't hear any talk of what you're going to do for infrastructure, specifically for northern Michigan, where there are a lot of people who are on wells.
And that bill is specific to those counties?
Yeah, it's specific to
Or it's a state?
it's statewide, but it's got a tweak in there that's specific to northern Michigan rural areas. And then the best thing they advise residents to do is contact this agency specifically to find out about relevant local authorities in Sheboygan that oversee water services. So that was kind of frightening to find out about Sheboygan. And then to hear that when you look at some of the other research that I've done, and you see that in Sheboygan particularly, bills are calculated quarterly, which is a little, I guess, better than how some other agencies do it. I do remember hearing
Well,
that
then
they
it's
used
just
to
one
do,
huge bill for 4 months then, right?
yeah, 3 months. Yeah, every
3
three
months.
months you get a bill. It used to be like that in Detroit, but then it's divided. The thing that struck me as different was that they divide their bills into two parts. They have fixed costs and ready to serve, which covers the maintenance for the infrastructure and the treatment plant. And then they have variable, which means it can fluctuate, which is usage and covers the cost of variable treatment and service to residents. But this is weird. It's like they bill it, the billing is done per 1,000 gallons of water in a 3-month period.
So they charge more for if you go over that?
They do charge more if you go over it. And the shocking thing is they just had a rate increase put in place in 2023 in June for 3% increase every July over the next 5 years. Every July 1st, which ironically, side note, is my birthday. They've sullied my day. Every July 1st, they will do another 3% increase over the next 5 years. So every July 1st until 2028, their bills will go up
Heck.
by 3%.
And they're only paying quarterly, so they're going to be huge bills at one time that people are
And that's
expected to
that's
pay.
barring that they're using the 1,000 gallon limit for the 3 months period. 3 month period. If
With
they're going
water,
over that, it could be
yeah,
more.
it's really, really hard for people to pay their bills already, especially people on fixed income.
Definitely.
But to have it that they're going to be raising it, repeatedly. That's like raising it 12. What percent is that after it's all done? That's a
So
lot.
5 years, 3% each year. That's 15% in total.
Yeah. Any way that you slice the cheese, that's going to make the water unaffordable for people. And
Definitely.
and you see this across the board all over Michigan. We certainly see it here in Detroit where we live,
Yeah.
where water rates have went up 400% here in Detroit in the last 5 years, right? Where you're looking
Absolutely.
at these consistent rate increases with people who they can't already make, I don't know anybody making all of their ends meet right now. I really don't.
No,
And it's that
not
way
in this
across the
day
board
and
and all over
age.
Michigan. So we have a
Yeah,
huge water affordability problem in northern Michigan that nobody's talking about,
definitely. And
except
then
for
the
us.
thing that's, having been shut off before, we understand that there's a stigmatization that goes along with it. So my thing is will these people in these areas seek out assistance when they have the shame factor that's built in,
They
or
don't want their
they
neighbors to
realize
know
that
that they can't afford their
their bill
water.
may be so large that the small amount of help that they would receive won't mitigate their bill. And I can attest to that because I remember going through the process of filing for state emergency relief and having the water department tell the caseworker, like, that money isn't going to do anything and we're not going to accept it. So therefore it's like, okay, you sought assistance, you got qualified for the assistance, but the water department or the utility is not going to accept it because of the amount of your bill. That is frightening to hear.
Yeah.
And I can
It's stressful. It puts
imagine
stress on the whole family.
it
Not
stresses the
only is
whole
it
family
shame,
out
but
to live without water. So it's like, even if you take the steps that you're supposed to, that are out there to receive assistance, there's still no guarantee that the utility will accept the payment.
the whole way that things are done keeps people in the red. And
Exactly.
they don't have any real recourse or any safety nets to fall on for help because we don't have a statewide water affordability plan.
Yeah.
Just that's it didn't get across the Michigan State House last year, and now we're
Right.
hoping to get it across the Senate floor this year. But without having that safety net, people really are left in unbelievable situations where they're having to go and buy a lot of water and
Yes.
getting their water shut off. Their people with children in the house have to worry about their children being taken. These
And
are
elderly too,
circumstances.
because
Yeah,
if
yeah,
you're a
same with elderly
caregiver,
people.
adult protective services can step in and remove, your elderly parent or grandparent from your home as
Yeah,
well.
if you don't have water. And
Yes,
that's a terrible way to criminalize people who already are stressed and can't afford their water. Something
exactly.
that is like they need for life. I
Not
mean, they're
only that, but a lot of people already have distrust in our government and in our systems. And for you to just alienate this person due to affordability issues on top of that does not build any type of relationship with the
with
community.
trust. It's
It's a trust
criminalizing
issue.
people for being poor. And we
It is
see that
exactly what it is.
all in every system. We see that. You know what I mean? From policing to housing, we see that. We're
Yes.
going to be talking about how housing, how people, in the next few Water Wednesdays, how housing is being criminalized. If you can't
Yeah,
afford housing, you're being criminalized. If you can't afford your water,
exactly.
you're being criminalized. Like are these are serious situations that people don't just bounce back from, even in northern Michigan. I
No,
mean, they're not going to bounce back from it. We need statewide water
we
affordability
do.
plan put in
We do.
place, and
We
people from all
definitely,
over Michigan need to be fighting for it because
that would be a
it's on all
start,
of us.
a great, great starting point to building equity amongst communities.
Yeah, yeah, and
And I
trust.
mean, and then when you look at Charlevoix, it's not much better. So Charlevoix uses a tool called Eyes on Water that monitors water usage. And they too had a rate increase beginning July 1st. But they didn't do it like every year. There's a $2.75 per 1,000 gallons of consumption charge and a tapping fee based on your meter size. And these are based on single family units.
They think they're single family units. How do they even know if two families
I
are
mean,
living in the home or not?
it may be listed um on the registry as
As a
a
single
single
family.
family home, but with the housing crisis that happened, coupled with the water affordability crisis that came directly on the heels of it, and then the economy and the state of affairs in with the current administration, there are multiple families living in single family homes because that's the only
Yeah.
way they can afford to survive, not live, survive. Because I really want our audience to understand there's a difference between living and surviving. When you're in survival mode, everything is different to you. When you're living life, you're just, going with the flow and enjoying things. When you're in survival mode, you're doing whatever it takes to get from A to B. You're doing whatever it takes to make it till the next day. And that
And
may
nobody
be,
can live without water.
and no one can live
That's it.
without water. Nothing, no living being, no living entity, plants, animals, humans can live without water. And then you're saying that not only that, but then if your water gets cut off, this is the one that got me. I understand there are fees. They have a restoration fee that's $35. But here's the catch. Only if it's during the hours of 7 a.m. and 3:30 p.m. If it's after those hours or before 7 or after 3:30, it's $135. They add $100 charge
To people who already can't afford their water.
onto people who already can't afford their water.
These people don't care.
They got me for a minute because when I first saw 35, I'm like, $35 isn't that bad.
It is, though, if you can't afford
But
your
it
bill.
is if you
If
can't
you
afford it.
already
But
can't.
then to have the
Yeah.
audacity to
Like,
say
if it's the
that
wrong time of day, we're going
if
to
it's the
charge you
wrong time
more.
of day, you're gonna get an extra $100 because we got to come out before 7 or after 3:30. When I'm assuming most agencies, most companies close at 5 o'clock. So you're saying for another hour and a half after 3:30, you're still open.
Like, if I
But
had to work all day and I couldn't sit on the phone with the water company, then it's going to cost me a lot more.
exactly. And you might be
What
working
kind of
literally
service
not
is
even
that?
paycheck to paycheck. You just may be working to pay bills. I'll put it that way. Because
I mean, that's living paycheck to paycheck.
paycheck to
Like, we're
paycheck
just
isn't
barely.
even a reality anymore. I know people
No,
who
everybody's
literally
robbing Peter
borrow,
to pay Paul. Yeah,
yeah, or they literally borrow before they get their next paycheck because they have bills that they're trying to keep on top of.
yeah.
And it's
Yeah,
still, which
which is
means that
like
you're in,
this never-ending cycle of
yes, because it
poverty and
means you're in
paying and
bigger debt.
poverty and paying any way that you slice the cheese. It's,
Exactly, because
criminalizing
now you owe
somebody.
your bills,
It's
but you
absolutely
also owe
atrocious.
this extra money that you borrow. And in Charlevoix, they have a structured water rate system. So I remember when we're having our disagreements and our debates with the city of Detroit, and we were talking about tiered water systems and structured rates. That's what they have. They include both services and commodity charges with different rate. This is the thing that really got me. Why do you have different rates for city and non-city residents? So people who live in the more rural areas are charged differently from people who live right in the heart of the city of Charlevoix.
Criminalized.
Criminalizing them, which you got to think that people on the outskirts of town are probably lower income. They may be farmers who've been divested from, and then you're going to charge them more.
Well, and if
That's
they're growing
crazy.
things, they're going to use more water, and so you're charging them a higher rate on water they already can't afford because they have to use so much of it. I
Yes,
mean,
and then they're saying that
if you think about it, it's just
it's heartbreaking. And it also at the same time makes me so angry because we want our legislators, we want our government, and we want our water utilities to know that the people of Charlevoix are not in this by themselves. This is a Michigan issue, and I don't care if I'm from Detroit and I'm poor and I'm black and I've never been to Charlevoix. I stand with the people of Charlevoix. If they're ready to fight, I'm ready to stand by their side in the fight. Because this is not only criminal, it is inhumane. That's the best thing I can
It's
say.
hurtful to the entire family, to the
It
entire
is.
household.
It's
It's
hurtful.
that when you can't afford your bills and then you get a restoration fee tacked on top, whether it's a utility bill, a water bill, whatever, it harms you in a way that you don't immediately bounce back from.
And
You're
then
borrowing money from your family,
yes.
just to pay the restoration fee. It's
And then
not
if
fair.
you're
Should never
being,
be a restoration fee, especially a different one at different times a day
that's
for
the one
people
that
who can't
got me.
afford their
That's what
water.
really got me. So you're saying that, say I work at I don't know, pancake house or some
Yeah, I
little
can't sit on the
restaurant up there, a
phone with the
diner,
water utility.
and I don't get off from work until 4. So now I have to pay an extra $100 because I got off from work at 4.
That's
And I'm really
that's
anxious. I'm
ridiculous.
still doing research, but I'm really anxious to see what their policies are for commercial businesses
Yeah, I bet you'll
versus
find that
how
they
they
don't have the
treat.
restoration fee
Exactly, because we see that across the board in
all over
Detroit.
Michigan
They will cut off residential customers faster
all
than the
day long.
person all day long, faster than the person can get, their checkbook out. But you will let particularly bigger companies, commercial properties, and industries go years and years and years without paying a water bill, and then allow them to then negotiate and dispute the bill for additional years before you make a decision, and they are still not cut off. Because if I'm not mistaken, Joe Louis Arena has been closed for several years, and it's still running water in there. They and Mike Ilitch died owing a bill for Joe Louis Arena, and it's a six-figure bill, a high six-figure bill. But you
Yeah,
cut
but they'll shut
people
off
off,
all the neighborhoods around there. I mean, you
right?
see that across the board all over Michigan. This is why we have these conversations, folks.
Yes,
It's really important to know that we're all connected, that our struggles are all connected. When it comes to water, we're all connected. And, we've got to stand together throughout Michigan. We need the folks in northern Michigan to make sure that they let their legislators know that, hey, I can't afford my water and this
yeah,
restoration fee is wrong. Like, these are the things that we're going to have to stand unified to say,
we
no,
have to.
no, you can't criminalize my neighbors. You can't because they're poor, because they don't have any money or they don't have enough money for their water bill. Maybe they're just in a
Exactly.
snag, right? Like they're just going through something,
They could have
you
had a
know?
family crisis that
They
caused
could have
them
had
to
their car
deplete
break down and
anything.
it cost them.
Yes.
Like, anything could happen. Somebody could
I
be
met a
having a
young
health
lady one
emergency.
time when we first got involved in this who had just lost her mom. And she realized that her mom didn't have the insurance and things, and she had to have funeral services for her mother. And even though the state of Michigan gave her some money, it's never enough to cover the
It's just a
full
couple
amount of
hundred
the
bucks.
cost.
No.
So she buried her mom, which caused her, and then with the emotional just of losing her mom, she just broke down and she ended up, not able to pay her bills. She temporarily lost her job. She was crumbling under the weight of just dealing with losing a parent and then paying for it, and then you decide to cut her water off. So now she's just lost her mom. She has a risk losing her kid.
That's why water should never be shut off.
It
That's the
should not.
basis of all of this. That's why you have to have bills in place because water should
Yes.
never be shut off. That's the basis of all of that. It's a human right because things like that happen, right? People lose everything. They end up losing
Yeah,
everything. And
exactly.
those are the situations and decisions and hard decisions and stress and things that people are going through all over Michigan. We need to come together to
We have to.
really
And
address this
when
situation and
you
push
fight
for legislation
when you
together.
fight issues like demanding that water is a human right and not be shut off for someone being unable to pay, you set up boundaries that stop you from doing this in other fields. Like right now, people think it's okay to shut people off for lack of payment of water. If they can't afford it, they want to criminalize being poor. And then I just heard on Newsweek, because I subscribe to it, that they're trying to pass a bill at the federal level that says food is no longer a human right. That's a good way, a precursor. That's a way to remove the SNAP program, to remove food stamps, which a lot of people rely on to make ends meet to pay for food. So if you think about that, if they pass that, and now people have to spend their cash on food as well, that's going to do it even more
People who are
decrease
already
to
struggling.
to people who are already struggling. Now you have to buy food and pay your bills. Something's got to give.
Something's got to give. Yes, that's what this whole show is about. We really are
Yeah.
asking people to come together, talk to your neighbors, find out if they're having water insecurity problems,
Yes, please talk
and
to your
come up with a
neighbors.
plan to organize. All we can do right now is organize across Michigan to make sure that we get legislation put in place. Nicole, thank you for doing all of this research. We really appreciate it. You know, the amount of people who are suffering right now is great. And we're on your side. We think of you. We're going to tell your stories. Please reach out to us if you're having water insecurity issues. We need to know about it. We need to tell your story. We can even
Yes.
tell it anonymously if you're worried about going public with it. And I understand it. I felt that
Yes.
shame and I understand it. Thank you,
We
Nicole. Thank
both
you to
have, yeah.
Angelica, who does our technology in the background, you know, and makes us look good every day. And, you know, take care of each other, look out for
Yeah.
each other, fight together, come together, and try to stay afloat. Bye.
Bye.